Okay, so due to the glorious thing that is Reddit, I saw this one clip of Meteos talking about Riot's design, and I kind of wanted to talk about it, so let's watch the clip first.
I just think a lot of the time when Riot makes their decisions, it feels like they don't think about will this make the game fun? They get distracted by other things like how can I look like a creative designer? Like what can I do that's just totally out there? And then it'll might even sound cool on paper. It's like, guys, what if you made a champion that can't get gold, can't auto attack, can't move, but they're balanced, 50% win rate, and everyone Riot's like, oh, it's so different. Oh God, my nipples. Oh, and then they make it, and then you get in game, you're just like, dude, this is shit. It's not like any other champion, right? It's like, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more as I tweak my fucking. I just think a lot of the time.
Yeah, so basically, I think Meteos has kind of hit it on the head here. There are a bunch of times when Riot have intentionally tried to implement something into the game that breaks a fundamental rule, which makes it not feel good to play. Like, it's not like Riot haven't designed characters that have ended up doing different things than what they were intended before. I mean, just look at Vi. Vi's a good example. Vi was designed as a top laner, and then not long after her release, people decided, oh, wait, hang on a moment. Her ult's fucking great as a ganking tool. And with her Q's mobility and her W's attack speed steroid and her E's AoE, she's fucking great at clearing. So let's just play her in the jungle, right? And then Riot just kind of forgot about her being a top laner and just bounced her around her ability to jungle for good 3 or 4 years. And it's only very recently that Riot have tried to implement balance changes to her to try and make her into a half-decent top laner again. And it's like 3 or 4 years to try and return to your initial vision of what this character is supposed to be. That's a long-ass time. It's happened several times before. Like, would you believe me if I told you that Maokai was designed to be a support? Granted, this was like 2 or 3 Maokais ago. He's been reworked multiple times since then. But his fundamental core kit has stayed the same. The only thing that's really changed is his ultimate. That's the only skill which they have completely redone from the ground up. But like, if you imagine his current kit, it's you can kind of play it like you would play Leona, and I have done that before. But like, he's always seen players as either a jungler or a top laner, and the reason for that is because if he was originally designed as a support, you look at his E and think, okay, that's like a ward substitute, and then he's got hard crowd control, and his ultimate used to be that he puts a circle on the ground, and then allies within that circle, including himself, take flat percentage less damage. So that's like good amounts of defensive utility. The problem is people realize, hang on a moment, I'll just take this damage reduction with me and just show up and just drop it in ganks, and then suddenly there's a whole lot less risk. And then when they reworked it to follow him around, the circle used to just be placed on the ground and would disappear either when he reactivated it or when he walked away from it far enough. What happened was he just became a top laner, because if you engaged on him, he would just pop his ult, and then suddenly, well, I guess I just take percentage less damage. Try and kill me now. So, yeah, basically, sometimes when Riot implements a change, it doesn't pan out the way they intend. And sometimes when they try to make a character do a specific thing, they succeed too well, and it becomes entirely dominant. Like, let's take a look at Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser, oh boy. So, when the Juggernaut patch dropped, Mordekaiser was changed in such a way to where Riot wanted him to be playable in bot lane. And so how did they do this? They made it so that he got no experience penalty for being in a duo lane, which is a kind of ridiculous thing, even if he was otherwise not very good. But then they also gave him ridiculous numbers, like his W healed for a shit ton, his Q dealt, like, ramping damage. Like, at max rank, his Q used to, it doesn't now, it used to deal, like, on-hit magic damage, then the next hit would do triple that damage, and the third hit would do triple that in damage, and it's just like, that's fucking crazy. The amount of damage he was capable of doing was insane. And it was all because they wanted to ham-fist this character and say, wouldn't it be cool if people played melee champions in the bot lane? So then they thought, okay, how do we incentivize people to play melee champion in the bot lane? And the answer is we designed him to be fucking ridiculous in the bot lane. Because they also added his ability to, like, steal the ghost of dragon. And but obviously bot lane is closer to the dragon than top lane, which is where Mordekaiser was seeing most of his play prior to that. So they thought, okay, well, we'll just give him, like, extra value out of this neutral objective that is in the position we want him to see play. So that, again, will add further incentive. It's like they gave him way too much that made him good in that position. And so, consequently, he was pick or ban tier for Worlds that year. And it's like, Mordekaiser, buggiest champion in the whole game. If you wanted to write a book on how long, on how many bugs he has, it would be as long as War and Peace. And this champion is pick or ban tier in the most important tournament of the year. That's a mistake. So anyway, when in this clip, I'm pretty sure Meteos is talking about Pyke. And Pyke, I did say it when I did my initial impressions on him. I think that Assassin and Support is a combination which normally would be completely irreconcilable. And I do think that even if he turns out at least semi-balanced, I feel like they'll be like nudging him and tweaking him for a long-ass period of time afterwards, after his release. I just feel like there will be some times when he just automatically becomes the best character, precisely because of the rule he breaks, in that he can simultaneously exist as a support and an assassin when no other champion in the game can do that. There's this rule in the game. I don't have a name for it, but we'll call it the breaking rules rule, where if any champion breaks a fundamental rule of the game, they automatically become the best in their intended role. And a good example of this would be Graves. So when they reworked Graves, they basically made his kit function as though he were a melee champion, even though he's a ranged champion. And the way they did that was that they made it so that he had to reload in between auto attacks. So he's like, it reload every 2 auto attacks. So, and also they made it so that he does more damage if he stands closer to his intended target. So what they did was they essentially made him into Shotgun Riven, but with the caveat that because he's a ranged character and his passive specifically has synergy with crit, that in a way that melee champions don't have, namely that if he crits, he shoots more pellets out of his gun, which again straight up leads to more damage. So they basically gave him a bunch of the upsides of being both a melee character and a ranged character, but with not really any of the downsides. And his passive may as well have like this asterisk on it that says practically doesn't take damage from jungle camps. It written in fine print. What it actually says is that he pushes minions and monsters back if he hits them with 2 or more pellets. And that basically just means that he kites jungle camps like fucking ridiculously. So he has the healthiest clear in the entire game. Like, when they first revealed that rework, I thought, 425 auto attack range. What's it that what was it that's keeping Urgot out of the bot lane? Oh yeah, it's 425 auto attack range. He's not going to be a bot laner. I looked at him and thought, that's a top laner. That's Shotgun Riven. He's going to be a top laner. And he kind of was. But then people discovered, oh yeah, he's a fucking ridiculous jungler. Let's just play him in the jungle. Granted, he was so broken when they first released that rework that he was legitimately the best character in every role except support. And even then, I'm pretty sure his numbers would have made him a half-decent support at the time. Purely because of the raw power he had. But I think the thing is, Graves basically doesn't take damage from clearing the jungle, which is, in the case of most of the characters, kind of a prerequisite for being able to jungle. You have to be able to clear decently well, and Graves just kind of ignores having to clear particularly well because he just doesn't take damage from the jungle. So then the only question is, does he have a fast clear? The answer is yes. Does he have decent ganks? The answer is, well, he doesn't need decent ganks because he does enough damage to just kill people, so his lack of crowd control is pretty much a moot point. Does he have good neutral objective? Does he have good neutral objective control? He does enough damage, so yes. Does he scale? Yes. Yes, he does, because he is an AD carry, basically. So he ticks, like, all of the boxes, and the one area where, he might... The one area where there's a box where he might not tick, namely, does he survive? Does he have a healthy clear? is just kind of an automatic given. That's the one place where like his kit might cause him to fail in the role. And he's not the only character to do this. Like, well, let me just go right to the bottom of my most played characters and find Ivan, who I haven't touched. And that's despite the fact that I'm a jungle main. Why haven't I touched Ivan? And that's because I don't like that he breaks the fundamental rule that you have to clear the jungle to be a jungler. His passive is just, oh yeah, I can just put a circle down at the cost of some health and mana. That's basically, you know, the equivalent of health in the jungle. It's not. And then just hit smite and boom, camp's done. I have the buff. Also, holy crap, this clip is old because there are small monsters by the buff still. Holy crap. Was it really that long ago when Ivan was released? Damn. Anyway. So basically, he breaks the rule where you have to be able to have a decent clear in order to be a jungler. And that's kind of the point of his entire character, but that basically meant that for a long-ass period of time, Ivan was a fucking broken jungler. And he also kind of has this problem where he's also, like, a better Nunu, because of the fact that he doesn't just have Consume, which is basically a second smite. He instead has this ability to just walk up to a camp and say, boom, it's done. And, like, the amount of time he spends on it is probably going to be less time than a bunch of junglers as well. He also duplicates buffs, I forgot to mention that, which is another like fundamental rule. Usually it's one buff, one camp, one buff. But Ivan's like, oh yeah, one camp, two buffs. Sure. So while Ivan was a creative solution for trying to get like a very supportive champion into the jungle, they had to do it by compromising one of the fundamental rules of the game in his design, and it's something that he can do that no one else can do. And while I do think that making it so that characters have their own like unique talents and things that they can do that no one else can, that definitely contributes to their identity, you also have to think about what are the rules which are kind of keeping this entire game balanced. What are the universal truths that every character has to accept? And when a character can just disregard one of those truths, then you tend to get a character that is just broken. But here's another example. Way back when there was a meta when assassins tended to build tank items, where you got shit like Tank Echo, that was fucking crazy, because you had, you know, characters dealing like assassins levels of damage output, and with crazy amounts of mobility, and Echo in particular because he had so much utility for an assassin. And just not dying, really. And it took them a while to solve that problem with Echo, and it turns out the solution to the problem was just making it so that he doesn't have percentage of missing health regeneration on his ultimate. Like, you can't... If you want to make a character specifically function in a role, you have to not give them any outs to play a different role. And I think they've probably done a decent job with that with Pyke, making it so that building health is not a thing you can do on him. Health becomes damage. So, consequently, you can't be a tank, because if you don't have health, you're not going to tank very much. You're just going to get shot in the face and die. Let's see, what other characters break rules? Oh yeah, Zoe. Fuck Zoe. I could go on an entire rant about Zoe, but Zoe... She's at the bottom, isn't she? There she is. Zoe breaks one fundamental rule of the game, and that's that there is no RNG on a character's kit. Her W has randomness. And very intentionally, no other character does. It might look like Twisted Fate has randomness on his kit, but he actually doesn't. His pick a card is on a cycle that stops when you lock in what card you're going to throw, which means that the next time you activate pick a card, it will start at that part of the cycle. So if you know that, and you take advantage of it, that means that you can like kind of rig his system and throw out the cards you want as fast as possible without your opponent having the chance to see what card you've got, because he then doesn't have the indicator. Because you've just quick locked in the gold card so that you can just turn around, stun him, and then boom, you're off. And knowing that means that you'll have a whole lot less blue card salutes. So anyway, like, Twisted Fate is probably the only has probably the only mechanic in the game that looks random, but isn't actually random. Besides crit, but crit Crit's a complicated discussion that I'll leave for another time. But crit also is a universal stat that anyone can build. Zoe specifically has one ability on her kit that is random. And they've specifically had to exclude certain effects which can come out of said randomness, precisely because of that. It doesn't help that Zoe is also the reincarnation of Old Nidalee, who was removed from the game because it was just fucking not fun. And it turns out when Riot came along and said, "Okay, you know what would be fun? Let's make a character who is literally just Old Nidalee again, but this time with hard crowd control." If you make Old Nidalee with hard crowd control, what you've done is you've reincarnated the most oppressive poke champion that ever existed into the game again, but you've also made them the best combo champion, because you've made it so they literally can't avoid the poke. So there is no evasion. You get hit by the crowd control, you are guaranteed to get hit by the stupid nuke, which means that you take 80% of your health, and then you either leave, because you're going to die if you get hit by another one, or you just die because you got hit by another one, or you got hit by literally anything else, because 20% of your health is not a nice amount to have when you're in the middle of like a skirmish or some shit. So like, yeah. Anyway, basically, when a character breaks some fundamental rule of the game, chances are they're either going to be the best character in a given role, or they are going to have to be nerfed into the dirt and made completely unplayable. Azir is another example, actually. Azir used to be able to have like 1,200 auto attack range, and it turns out when you make it so that characters can have more than 600 auto attack range, which is like Caitlyn's, I think. No, 675 is Caitlyn's. Basically, if you get above the 800 auto attack range, which is like what Twitch has with his ultimate, Kog'Maw has with his W, and I think maybe Jinx has close to with her rockets, then you create range with auto attacks that is so ridiculously oppressive that the character is necessarily the best in his role and doing his job. Like, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to pretty much pinpoint this down to, is that characters that break rules are often unbalanceable messes. And let's hope that Pyke isn't an unbalanceable mess, despite the rules that he evidently breaks. Yeah. Thanks for hearing me out. See you next time.